What's up everybody, this is Ghost Emperor here, and today we will be discussing the mental stack. Now I know there's a lot of videos on YouTube that discuss this topic, but I wanted to discuss the Samsho mental stack. There's also a lot of players that I help and teach that do not know what the mental stack is. So let's get into it. As you can see from the definition on screen, it is two players keeping track of the adaptation during gameplay. Let's see this inside an actual match, and let's see how the mental stack stacks up. For instance, if player 1 attempts to run up and grab player 2, and player 2 proceeds to dodge, now the dodge and the grab is part of the mental stack. Player 1 has to think of the dodge the next time this happens again. Player 2 has to think of the grab the next time this happens again. If this scenario happens a second time, player 1 attempts to grab, but this time delays the grab. Player 2 dodges. Player 1 punishes the dodge. Now, the delay, the dodge, and the grab are now part of the mental stack. So that's two things player 2 has to think about, and one thing player 1 has to think about. If this was to happen a third time, player 1 runs up to grab, delays, player 2 puts out a button to stop player 1 from grabbing. Now, there's four things to worry about on the mental stack. That's delay, that's grab, that's dodge, that's a button. If this was to happen again, now player 1 attempts to run up, and this time player 1 deflects because player 2 puts out a button again to stop them from running in. Now, that's another thing added to the mental stack, and so forth and so on. Let's discuss the mental stack overload. This occurs when you take on too much information during a match and can cause some in-game issues. These issues are sluggishness for reaction, confusion, autopilot, and you may also lose track of the mental stack. How to avoid mental stack overload. Good ways to avoid the mental stack overload is allow such things as punishes and scenarios that you have learned from playing people. You should also try to play people of your level in sets of 5 or 10 to practice keeping track of the mental stack. This will also help you increase how much your brain can take when trying to remember what is in the mental stack, because you can become very tired from playing long sets. Playing people in 5 to 10 sets gives you a lot of practice in a short time. It may also be good to write down things to watch out for that you have seen over and over again in a match just in case you forget. By the way, you can also record matches and go over them later. Another way to avoid mental stack overload is not adding useless buttons or actions to the mental. For instance, if Ukyo jumps, there's no need to try to add Ukyo's jumping to the mental stack because his jumps are so floaty, all of his strengths are on the ground. Another example is if your opponent is whipping buttons in neutral. At lower levels, you don't need to keep track of what button is being used in neutral by your opponent, but as you lab the game and play people, you may want to add it to the mental stack to begin with punishing characters like Jubei and Yasha's 5B. Here is a mental stack flowchart that will help you reduce the mental stack overload. As I stated earlier, labbing and practicing your punishes will help you reduce what you have to think about during gameplay, because the last thing you want to think about is how to punish and how to do a move. Let's look at the chart from a beginner to expert standpoint. So as a beginner, your opponent jumps in and you are thinking what moves to use to anti-air your opponent. But by the time you remember, you're hit in the face, you're getting comboed, and now you're fighting for your life. So you go to practice mode and you practice anti-airs on a dummy several times, and you go back and you act for another first to 5. The opponent puts you back in the same scenario again, he jumps, and this time you remember the anti-air. But this time your opponent jumps again, and you don't remember. And now again, you're fighting for your life. You go back to practice mode, you practice again, and you ask the opponent for another first to 5. This time, your opponent jumps, and you anti-air. Your opponent jumps again, you anti-air again. Now, you don't have to think about anti-air during the mental stack, because it'll happen naturally now. You've practiced it enough, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. So I hope you have learned a lot from watching this video. If you like these types of videos, drop a comment or give me a thumbs up, and maybe hit the subscribe button. It will be appreciated. Thank you.